You know, it's easy to see how turbocharging has become one of the hottest new ways to make big horsepower. Well, today we're going to do our first ever turbo install here in the shop.
That's right, with some help from the man who spent over 40 years setting the standards of turbocharging in the world of high performance. As a youngster, Gale Banks had a typical hot rodder's passion for power and speed. Soon after opening his first speed shop, he began pioneering a little-known power adder called turbocharging. Over the ensuing years, Banks would create the turbocharged power that would set world records on land and on water. For starters, how about the world's fastest pickup truck and the fastest piston engine automobile? For 10 years, Banks held the unbroken record for fastest passenger car, an 1,800-horse twin-turbo Firebird that blistered the Bonneville Salt Flats running 287 miles an hour. Well, today, Banks Engineering is a 200-employee-strong engineering and manufacturing complex in California, where the Banks legend lives on. It's the premier maker of power enhancement products for gas and diesel-powered trucks and motorhomes. But the man who put turbo on the map has also been busy with innovations for hot rodders who want the ultimate in high-tech, high performance on the streets and strips of America. And here is the turbo guru himself, who just happened to bring along his new Sidewinder crate engine. Get this, twin-turbo Chevy small block. Man, this is going to be cool. And before I drool on it too much, Gale, I thought it'd be a good idea just for the newcomers to give us a little turbo basics.
Well, a turbocharger is a compressor driven by a turbine. So turbocharger. Exhaust flows through the turbine here in the rear. Up to about 100,000 RPM shaft speed is produced, sometimes well over that. It drives a compressor that's on the front of the turbocharger. Air flows in, is compressed, and boost pressure runs in through this plenum, through the throttle body, and into the engine. This particular setup has direct port fuel injection. Now, the turbocharger I found back when I started messing with them in the late 50s, early 60s, compared to blown engines I was building at the time, at the same boost, I'd have a horsepower advantage with a turbocharger. It could be as much as 200 horsepower. Same boost level, same engine, same fuel. Well, the reason for that is that when you have a blower sitting up here, it's parasitically drawing horsepower through a belt off the crankshaft. The turbo runs on wasted exhaust energy. Yeah, it makes a little back pressure, but it doesn't use as much shaft horsepower, so you get more out of the flywheel with a turbo than with a blower. There are some other advantages. With a turbocharger, using the wastegate, I can control the amount of exhaust flowing through the turbine, and I can change the speed of the turbocharger relative to the speed of the engine, which means I can make boost, I can paint a torque curve like you could only imagine with a blower. As far as throttle response, turbo lag is gone. That's history. We have tire problems. We don't have power problems. So you can also vary the octane. By changing the boost level with the wastegate, this thing will run on 87 all the way up to 100 or more, but at 100 octane, clear, no lead, this thing makes 1,115 horsepower.
Wow.
So there you go.
Why did you want to come up with this new concept, a twin turbo for the small block Chevy?
Well, this is when something gets old enough, it gets to be new again. Back in the 70s and the early 80s, I built a lot of twin-turboed 700-horse Firebirds and Camaros and Corvettes. We had the first magazine test at over 200 miles an hour with a street machine. Then I got into diesel, and I've done a couple decades of doing diesel. Of course, there's turbos on those too, but no one stepped up. No one came out with a bolt-on, ready-to-go, 100,000-mile capable twin-turbo setup. So we built the engines as an example. A guy doesn't have to buy the engine. He just needs the turbocharging. There's millions of small block Chevys out there.
Well, to make that kind of horsepower, Gale, you obviously had to make some changes to the inside of the engine. For example?
Well, what you do with a supercharged engine or a turbocharged engine is you build a real rugged piece to start with. Camshaft, that's specific to turbocharging. Piston design for blown or supercharged or turbocharged engines has to be lower compression. This one that we build is the Banks blower piston, has a reverse deflector. It's down the hole here, where you'd normally have a pop-up in a high compression, and quench area here, and this helps you prevent detonation. We also go over to the combustion chamber and we polish it out a bit to remove hot spots that could also lead to detonation.
Some of you might be thinking now, I already have a good healthy small block. What I need is some serious boost, and this looks like a serious twin turbo kit you got here, Gale. Is it everything a guy needs?
It's everything you need. You don't have to own a hardware store to install this,
Nice.
baby. Also, you don't have to own a machine shop. Simple hand tools gets the job done. The kit resolves one big aftermarket turbo issue, and that's the exhaust manifolds. Instead of a fabricated tubular manifold, what we've done is we've gone ahead and invested in high silicon ductile iron manifolds left and right, so you don't have the cracking, the turbo sagging, and the gaskets blowing that you encounter with a hand-built tubular exhaust manifold. And the layout of the turbo system is such that it'll fit 55 up Chevys, both cars and trucks.
Well, we have to take a short break, but when we come back, Joe and I are going to take that turbo kit, put it on this small block, and even fire it up. I know you don't want to miss that. Well, it looks like we're ready to install the Banks turbo kit. Now, one of the most important things is you want to make sure you start off with a good electronic fuel injection system like the one we got from Excel DFI. We bolt each manifold on with the heat shield between the manifold and the cylinder head. With the studs installed, drop the gaskets and spacer over the manifold flange. Then install the turbo assembly to the manifold with the turbine outlet facing to the rear.
Each one of these turbos is capable of flowing enough air for 560 horsepower. That means that the turbine and compressor are going to be spinning up to 100,000 RPMs, so oil supply to this center section is critical. Now, we get that handled by first installing this elbow fitting, and from there a hard line that connects to a T-fitting for both turbochargers, and from it this braided line connects to the back of the block.
Since we have an oil feed line, we need an oil drain line too. Now, the kit comes with these two bungs that get welded to the oil pan, but we already have that covered, so let's get started on the wastegate. It controls the amount of boost delivered to the engine and installs just under the turbo here on the manifold.
Now we can drop on this pressure chamber. Now, inside it is this shuttle valve that opens when manifold vacuum rises. Now, that also means that even when you're off the throttle, the boost has a place to go. The turbo stays spooled up, and, well, you got full boost when you hit that next gear. With that chamber installed, now we need to get boost pressure from the turbos to the intake manifold. So we're installing these boost tubes from the compressor outlets to the inlets on the pressure chamber. In order for the wastegates to operate, they need boost reference from the pressure chamber, and that's what these hard lines are for. Well, now we need to prime the oiling system to ensure that those turbos are properly lubed. Then, after installing the heat shields and exhaust pipes, we can bolt up this O2 sensor along with the distributor and wiring harness for our fuel injection system.
Finally, we can bolt the radiator to the engine stand and run our water hoses.
Well, believe it or not, we're about ready to fire up this turbocharged mouse. And most of you guys can install one of these Banks Sidewinder kits at home in about a day, and you can bolt it up to your stock small block if you're only shooting for about 600 horsepower. Now, if your goal is 1,100 or more, well, you'll need to build your motor from scratch. All right, Gale, why don't you do us the honors? That's the sweetest sound we've heard here in a long time. Of course, you will need a 3-inch exhaust for maximum power, but whether you bolt on a kit or drop in a twin-turbo crate engine, what a way to save parts while you make some amazing horsepower and torque. Stay with us. We're coming right back.